This is a video on the history of controllers for each console. So first, well, this is not first actually, we're going to start off with the original Xbox. The original Xbox had the first controller be called the Duke. The Duke is known to be incredibly large and very uncomfortable to hold. It's not very popular controller. Some people like it for nostalgic reasons, but usually most people go for this controller, which is the Xbox S, later revised in Japan and in Europe. This controller is a lot more like the rest of the controllers. So the thing that they've changed about is button layout. These buttons are now more straight. Before they were curved to the side. You also got these two buttons here, the light button and the dark button, were on the two different separate sides. Now they put them on the one straight row. You've got the pause button and select button. The D-pad is terrible, and that is common with the next controller here, the 360. You also do have the Xbox logo over here. Mine is blank out, it depends on the version. You also got these two ports at the back, which are for, you could put memory cards in, so when you're going over to someone's house, you could play on your own saves of a game. Usually, no one used it because the Xbox had so much storage compared to the PS2, while the PS2 was very, how to say, you needed to for you to play games, you always needed to have a memory card, and for Xbox you didn't, so that was a big reason why people like Xbox. Next, the 360. This is called one of the greatest controllers ever made, and I would agree to the extent that they have, because of this controller, we've involved in such great controllers such as the Xbox controllers in future, the DualSense, and also the Nintendo Pro controller. But otherwise, this controller, the home button here is like 3D printed. It's cool, but also very dated. You got these 1, 2, 3, 4. So each side had had lights to show how many players are playing at one time. You've got the terrible D-pad back, yay. You've got different versions. So this one is a wireless one, but you also had wired and wireless. So that wireless is actually very useful and in future, because lots of people wanted. The first wireless controller was actually for the GameCube, and so finally Xbox and PlayStation evolved to have better controllers. This controller is very favorable among the people. Some people say this is greater, but I think evolution has made this controller irrelevant, and also backwards compatibility. The next controller here is the original Xbox One controller. This controller doesn't have a lot of features that the rest over here have. It doesn't have a port for headset, and it's generally it's very clicky compared to the rest over here. Here's the turn on button. It's very bright, but otherwise, yeah. The difference between this and the next one is the V-neck here. That's what it's called by Microsoft themselves, which differentiates the next one from this one. Next one is the Xbox One S and X controller. This controller has a much better texture, less bright light, and it's just a better controller. It also has the headset ports compared to the old original Xbox One controller. And so finally we're going to be finishing off with the Xbox Series X controller. This is the first time I'm holding it in my hand. So what I'm noticing first is that the buttons are a lot more flush on the new one compared to the old one. They still look the same. The joysticks feel fine. They're the same. The D-pad's much more clickier. It's also a lot more like the original Xbox S controller and the 360, but it's much better from what I've heard. You got the share button. This is how the controller turns on. You got this very nice texture on here and on the triggers. I like this. It's smaller compared to the other one. Yes, it's a nice controller. What can I say? Not much of an evolution, but then again, not much needed. Also, the bumpers are much better. You also got the V-neck is totally gone now. So if you can see here, you remember here the V-neck was it's shiny like the top buttons. Here you could see some hints of it, but it's gone, and here it's totally gone. Uses USB-C, and it's Bluetooth. Both of these two are Bluetooth. This one is not. Right, so I'm going to move over to PlayStation. So I don't have the PS1 controller. We do have here a PS2 controller. It has the analog button, which is to disable the sticks. And it's... a lot of people like this controller, but I would disagree. It's supposed to look... and feel like a Nintendo an NES controller. It looks like it, and it does feel like it. It doesn't mean it's any good though. But yeah, it's a okay controller. It's fine. The L2 and R2 buttons are flush, so they're just buttons. Unlike the DualShock 3 here, which is a lot more like triggers nowadays. This is the DualShock 3 6-axis. Originally, there was the 6-axis, which had no vibration because of legal issues. And then you've got this one here, which does have the vibrations, and is called the DualShock 3 6-axis. As you can see. You got the PlayStation button here, start, select, everything. It looks basically the same. Yeah, it's basically the same. So we're moving on here to a much more bigger leap than any of these. I mean, the biggest leap is from here to here. This one is the DualShock 4. It's a good controller, don't get me wrong, I like it. But I think the next one after is pretty much better. You've got the port here for headset, and you've also got to plug in a keyboard. This also has a mic and a sound coming out of it here. It's generally a very good controller. I like it. It's not as comfortable as the rest here. I personally think it's a bit too small on my hands, but that's where the next one comes in, the DualSense, which adds so much features that sort of revolutionizes controllers. So you've got haptic feedback. You've also got the enhanced vibrations, which can go from the bottom to the top. So like the example, Astro's Playroom, yes. It's a very good controller. It feels a lot like an Xbox controller. So yeah, it's very favorable. I also want to mention, not a lot of people know this, but this button here, if you press it with a stick, it fully restarts your controller. So you have any issues, there you go. The worries for all these controllers are drift issues. This one and this one is known to drift. And that's because of the components they used inside. I'm pretty sure Xbox has that problem too, but I haven't heard of it as much as the DualSense, which has recently been very known for having issues. But otherwise, there's the video. Here's the evolution of the controllers. And that's it. Enjoy your day. Goodbye.